The Transformers, more than meets the eye. Autobots wage their battle to destroy the evil forces of the Decepticons. The Transformers, robots in disguise.
Hello and welcome to another episode of A Separate Cinema, this time Universal Soldier only on SCTV. Welcome GI24. What's with the 24? Where's that from?
24
Oh, that's your
is
birthday.
the 24th. Yeah, my birthday.
Yeah, 24th of your birthday. I just realized. It's also Kobe.
It's also Kobe.
Right?
Yeah,
Kobe. Yeah.
He changed his number to my number.
That's right.
It's originally number 8. Yes, welcome everybody.
Yeah. I don't know if you noticed I'm switching monitors here.
Yeah, I prefer the
This is
intro a
live.
lot more than the last intro.
Yeah, I mean, I want that retro feel, you know. But anyway, this is a sip of cinema. As I said, welcome everybody. Since we're sipping, this is my pink limonade. It's non-alcoholic. Once again, I will drink whiskey at some point. Who knows when? But this is my drink. Guinness.
Some
And you know
Guinness.
why that is?
St. Patrick's Day.
St. Patrick's Day
Was yesterday in Australia, but it's still St. Patrick's Day now somewhere. So
Yeah, this is the 17th somewhere at this stage. So you got to get that nice pour of the Guinness. You got that big head. There's nothing like a Guinness in a proper Irish pub, like we had in South Yarra that one time. Autumn. So here's a toast to Universal Soldier from 1992. Continued on our interest in Jean Claude Van Damme movies and also Dolph Lundgren movies. So sort of the perfect combination of action stars in this movie. So here's to Universal Soldier.
cheers. Hasn't settled yet, but I'll cheers anyway.
When we're live, there's no time to settle. There's no time for Guinness. Nothing
Okay.
that fancy.
Just a lesson for people out there: you don't start drinking yet. Your Guinness.
No,
yet.
you don't
You
start
wait for it.
drinking yet.
You wait for it to settle. See this?
Yeah. He's a professional. Don't try this at home. So Universal Soldier released in 1992, which is sort of the sweet spot for us as adolescents. Nothing like the early 90s. It was like the peak period of sports and entertainment for us. Nothing. What can you say about the early 90s, early to mid 90s? I mean, we could do a
Just,
whole podcast for 2 hours about the early 90s.
Best time to be alive.
Best time to be alive, like especially in 2023. Like, okay, so I was 14, 15 in 1992. I mean, you couldn't have timed it more perfectly. Like in terms of the NBA, music, movies, even TV shows, X-Files, Seinfeld. I mean, I'm missing a few because I haven't thought about TV shows from that period for a while. But
so many cartoons.
you know,
as well.
that's cartoons. Yeah,
so many forgotten cartoons.
yeah.
Late 80s, early 90s.
Yeah, it's sort of a wonderful time. Look, but when you're living it, this is always the case. When you're living it, especially when you're young, you don't realize, what you're living through until you sort of reflect on it 20 years down the road. I mean, that's what I've learned. The older I've gotten is you sort of have perspective to look back on things and to put things in this proper perspective, if that makes sense. That's interesting. That's the most
Definitely.
interesting thing about getting older, I guess. Okay. So Universal Soldier, directed by Roland Emmerich, who directed one of your favorite movies, Independence Day in 1996. He also directed The Patriot, starring Mel Gibson, in 2000, and the disaster movie, apocalypse movie, really, The Day After Tomorrow, in 2012.
Day After Tomorrow. Which one was that one? Who's in that?
Was that the Oh, it's that. No. He directed The Day After Tomorrow and 2012.
2012. Yeah, I remember that one.
That was the Cusack one. Day
Yeah.
After Tomorrow was Jake Gyllenhaal and Dennis Quaid.
Yeah. I remember that one too.
Yeah. The disaster movies.
Hey, if you're into disaster movies, then they're not too bad. If you like that kind of thrill.
No, they're good. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And written by Richard Rothstein, Christopher Leith, and Dean Devlin. Starring Jean Claude Van Damme, Dolph Lundgren, and Ali Walker as the spunky journalist, shall we say? And so it starts off with a flashback to Vietnam, going back to Nam in 1969. And we sort of agreed
what do you remember about Universal Soldier before watching it again, like just from your
Oh
childhood?
yeah, I forgot to ask that. I forgot to ask that question, the contextual question. So, what I remember about Universal, so obviously we probably watched it on VCR at some point. That was sort of the primary way you would watch movies. I can't remember if we saw it in the cinema. Do you?
No, I doubt it. Definitely
Well,
on a Blockbuster or Movie Land or something.
yeah. But it seems like the type of movie that we should have seen in the cinema, but I guess we didn't at the time.
I feel like we didn't really
Uh,
watch a lot of these action movies in the cinemas when
no,
we
we
were
didn't really
little.
go
I
to the
feel
cinema
like
that
we were
often.
too young for it. We wouldn't get in with our
Yeah,
parents, but
except for except for RoboCop 2. Weren't too young to see that in the cinema. I mean, dang, that's probably the most traumatic I've been in the cinema is RoboCop 2. That was pretty full on for a kid. But in terms of Universal Soldier, I mean, this is unique in terms of how funny it is. It's a very humorous film.
yeah.
For various reasons, intentional and unintentional. What was your impression?
I feel like just remembering back as a kid, it's like a Van Damme movie. Like we love Van Damme action movies.
Mm,
They had that superhuman concept, which I think resonated. Like as children, it
yeah,
really resonated with us that kind of concept, and like it's like one of our favorite heroes, and he's also superhuman.
yeah,
Uh,
absolutely, yeah.
Also, Dolph Lundgren, he scared me in this movie, like as a child. He was very
Well, really?
intimidating.
Okay.
He was a bit of a
Yeah,
psycho, and he just didn't give a shit about anything. And
yeah.
there's a funny thing is he likes to kill with chucking grenades. He likes to throw grenades in this movie.
He likes to nade. He would have been really good in as a playable character in COD, running around Warzone with Dolph Lundgren, the GR13.
He just got nades.
Um, yeah, he's got the nades, but no, because Dolph Lundgren is pretty tall, relative to other Hollywood action stars. Like he's a giant, and that sort of adds to his intimidation factor. Like you
I
wouldn't
think he
have Jean Claude
I think
Van
he does.
Damme as GR13.
He
That would
plays a good bad guy as well. Like what else? Rocky 4 as well is really intimidating and quite impressive. Like you mentioned, his physique and his height, and yeah, he's very
Mm.
intimidating. I feel.
And he was very intimidating in Rocky 4, which is the movie that we would have been first introduced to. So he seemed like a superhero in Rocky 4 until the end, until the final fight,
Yeah.
which we'll get into in 2 weeks, of course. But anyway, so we start off with a flashback back to Vietnam, 1969. But in this Vietnam flashback, we don't have Creedence Clearwater Revivals playing like in every other Vietnam movie. This is more like a horror show because the soldiers are freaking out because they're saying that the sergeant killed everybody. To Van Damme because Van Damme's like creeping through the forest, and so he's like creeping through the jungle to see what's happening, and he finds the corpse of a soldier that's missing an ear, which sort of becomes a common theme throughout the film. And then he sort of starts walking through this village, and he sees even more corpses scattered about. And then we cut to a guy stringing up ears, putting like ears on a necklace, and it's Dolph Lundgren, and it's got 2 Vietnamese villages held captive.
He had a
And so
bowl of ears.
he's got a bowl of ears, that's right, and he's sort of putting it into a necklace. And so Van Damme sort of creeps up to him, tries to talk to him, but Sergeant starts ranting. Sarge, he starts ranting about how they're all traitors, blah blah blah. And Van Damme's like, "No, I just want to go home." And then Dolph Lundgren's like, "You can't just walk away." So this is what the ears actually look like on the necklace. So this is
He's
an
good.
interesting way to introduce the character of GR13.
I think that's when he says, "Do you hear me?"
Yeah, there's
There's
a
a
lot
lot of
of
ear jokes.
yeah, a lot of ear gags in this movie, which makes it a lot funnier. You can see he's got the look of a psycho in his eyes. The fanatic has sort of lost his marbles in Vietnam, and so at this stage we don't know their names. So I'll just say Dolph Lundgren orders Van Damme to execute the two Vietnamese prisoners, but he doesn't want to, of course. And then Dolph Lundgren just goes ahead and like executes the guy because it's a guy and a girl. And then Van Damme kicks his gun away and helps the girl escape, which is meant to be similar to a scene that occurs later in the film with Veronica, the journalist. Um, and then Dolph Lundgren shoots Van Damme in the leg and then throws a grenade at the girl who's running away. But unlike Veronica, this Vietnamese girl does not survive getting naded by Dolph Lundgren. So Van Damme grabs a bayonet off the ground and stabs the sergeant in the chest. But the sergeant pulls the gun and they both end up shooting each other to death. And so that's how they sort of become, I guess, part of the super soldier experiment. Yeah, nice, nice moment there. Bit of bit of action to start things off. But it's sort of unusual to have the two main characters die in the very first scene of the movie. But as I said, that sort of sets up the whole super soldier experiment type of thing. And it's sort of a common trope in various movies where someone dies and then that person becomes like an experiment. I mean, we talked about RoboCop earlier. I mean, that's basically the whole premise of RoboCop. Where the dead becomes, the experiment. Or the seemingly dead. I shouldn't say the dead, the seemingly dead. Like the semi-dead, I suppose. It's sort of like this Frankenstein reanimation type of thing. And then we cut to a chopper flying low over the river. And then we see a bunch of soldiers bagging and tagging the corpses in the village. And then there's a guy in charge. He talks about how we're going to report this as just a MIA, as if nothing happened. They want to cover it up. And he orders Van Damme and Dolph Lundgren to be packed in ice. So they're sort of bagged and tagged as well. But unlike the other corpses, they're sort of packed away so that their flesh is preserved in some way. And then we time jump to the present day, to a plain runway with army vehicles and people running around everywhere. And then this gigantic plane with a gigantic truck pulls up. And it looks like this. So I like the sort of the world building in this scene where you have this gigantic, mean-looking truck. So we saw the truck in Terminator 2. That's pretty intimidating. But then for a super soldier truck, you need something a lot bigger because in the trailer, this is where they sort of monitor and maintain all the super soldiers, right?
I like I like how they included these like sci-fi futuristic elements, and like this is kind of
Yeah.
like at that time, or in the
Yeah.
90s, it's kind of looked like a futuristic looking vehicle, like a armored personnel carrier of sorts. So they did a good job in that era to make it feel like a more futuristic kind of setting. Like inside the truck itself, it gave me kind of feels of Aliens, even that kind of
Yeah, for
futuristic
sure.
feel.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. But it's interesting you say that because I think the sci-fi style is intended to incorporate, I guess, modern elements from the early 90s with the sci-fi instead of
Yeah,
just building an entire world of the future, like Starship Troopers, for example. Even Robocop is like the world of the future.
yeah,
Even though it's kind of dingy and run down in Detroit, it's still the world of the future. This is more early 90s because of the cars and the environments and the how the landscape is sort of set out and how people dress and act and stuff. So, but they just put in like certain sci-fi elements to so it coexists with contemporaneously with when the movie was made. So I think that was interesting. Um, and so another chopper lands and you get some soldiers getting out, and it's the actual super soldiers, and they have like this lens thing over their left eye, and then we see Van Damme and Dolph Lundgren lining up with the other super soldiers as well. And there's scientists hanging around, taking readings and monitoring everything. And then the camera pans over a dam, and there's a scattering of corpses on the road above the dam. And it looks like there's some sort of hostage situation going down. And so I thought this is a really cool way to introduce what the super soldiers are all about, like why they've been developed in terms of showing what they can actually do for the US military, like why the US military would actually invest all this money in a super soldier program. And so we see that them handling a hostage situation very efficiently is actually a really good reason to do it. So we got Colonel Perry, played by Edo Ross, who we remember from Lethal Weapon. We noted in the Lethal Weapon episode that he always plays this. He's a great character actor, and so he plays a colonel in this movie. He was like the drug dealer in in Lethal Weapon.
he had very tiny. He had a little tiny role in Lethal Weapon.
Yeah, that's right. But you always see like character actors like him popping up in movies from the 80s and 90s. There's a bunch of actors like that, so it's good to give them recognition every now and then. Um, and so the press is there as well. A bunch of journalists that want to talk to Colonel Perry. They want to get the lowdown of what's going on. Then we cut to the soldiers. They're dressed in beige to be, I guess, camouflage with the desert, and so they're sort of jumping in the water. And we're introduced to Veronica as well. She drives up. She's late to the scene with a cigarette dangling out of her mouth. So she looks like a mess when she gets there. But she sort of cleans herself up and gets ready for the camera. So, you know, and then we cut to the hostage takers that demand their colleagues be released from the federal penitentiary. Then we see the soldiers like climbing, like scaling the dam hand over hand, like climbing the rope hand over hand, like really, really quickly, which is really cool. Like, I'm sure people can actually do it, but it makes the super soldiers look really strong. But then we also cut back to Veronica, and she gets fired because she's way too sassy and way too unreliable. But she doesn't give up on the story. Like she's an interesting character because she never gives up on the story. She wants the scoop. She's a real journalist.
And she wants a job back as well.
Yeah, she's a real journalist. So, and so we finally get their designations. So Dolph Lundgren is GR13, and Dolph Van Damme is GR44.
Yep.
And so they sort of take down their targets very quickly and quietly. And they have recordings of the security of the guards for the checkpoints, so they can play the recordings for the walkie-talkies when the guards have to check in. That was pretty cool. And then you see the soldiers like abseiling down the side of the dam, like face first, which is cool.
Yeah, that's
Taking
some
out more guards.
cool stunts. Some cool stunts.
Mm.
Introduction of the movie really builds up that anticipation for what's to come.
Yeah, and it shows what the super soldiers would actually be like if they actually existed. Like, this is exactly what they would do. Like, superhuman stuff like this. But I'm not saying humans can't do it, but they can do it more efficiently and faster. And then we actually have another super soldier dressed as a workman. So he's in disguise with a camera in his toolbox, like as recon. But the bad guys, like, they're suspicious of him. Like, why would a workman be hanging around at this point? And so they shoot him dead. But of course, he's not dead. And then GR13 and 44 come in and like kill the other bad guys. But then as they're killing him, GR44 has a flashback to Vietnam and the opening scene where he sees the captured Vietnamese people. And so he sort of has a momentary lapse of reason, I guess. He sort of just like he stops functioning for a moment. And so the guys in the truck like start questioning like what's going on. But then we cut to Colonel Perry. He's making a speech to the press, saying the Universal Soldier program has always been successful. Like, it's another successful mission for the project. But then Veronica's like looking on, and she has an idea. She wants to get closer to the action and get the scoop. And so she drives over to the plane that dropped off the super soldiers. And then she drags her cameraman along as well, because, you know, he's willing to help. And so we get a glimpse inside the truck, what's going on, and we see a familiar face in one of the super soldiers.
Okay, guys. Memory clearance. Take your positions.
Debo, we see Debo as part of as one of the super soldiers. He doesn't get much of a role in this movie, but it's cool to see a familiar face as one of the super soldiers.
Yeah, interesting thing. They had to swap the eye that his scope lens is on, because you know how he's got
Yeah.
one dodgy eye, so they had to they had to swap the lens to the other side for him.
Yeah, that was interesting. Yeah, it's a nice nice Easter egg for people who know hiding this stuff. Yeah.
No, just something on the side. I was watching the trailer for Universal Soldier, and you know, during the trailer they use Terminator 2 music throughout it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, you should go check it out after this. Go check it out.
No,
it's
I
pretty
made a
funny.
promo. I made a promo for our stream with the trailer, but I didn't really pay attention to the music. That's interesting. The same. Is it exactly the same music?
Yeah, exactly the same.
Oh, really? Because they both came out in '92, so that's very interesting. I wonder what's the deal there. But we get the impression that super soldiers had to be kept on ice, which implies that they're probably running hot for some reason. And they're questioning GR44, the Van Damme character, why he didn't respond before. And then he starts talking about how the girl is innocent. and again, it's the old memory bubbling up again from Vietnam. And then Perry's like, just give him the serum. And they all get an injection at the back of the skull, as you saw in that little clip. Then we cut to Veronica. She's scoping the place out with the cameraman. And there's no one around. So she's like, I'm going to get a closer look at the truck. And then we cut back to the truck, and then GR44 is getting grilled by Perry about following orders. So in this scene, we're sort of cutting back and forth between the truck and Veronica. So Veronica sees some really spicy stuff in her snooping around. And she opens this box, this gigantic box with a super soldier on ice. It looks like it's a corpse. And then she like starts taking pictures, but then as she's taking pictures, the soldier's eyes open, which is really cool. And that freaks her out. And then she's basically caught at that point. And the security cameras spot her, and the alarm goes off. And so she bolts and tries to escape with the cameraman in the car, but like they crash their car. Luckily, it's GR44 who catches up to them first. And then she tries to like give him like their credentials as journalists and stuff. But unfortunately, GR13 also shows up. GR13 is ordered to get the film, like what she was like taking pictures of, and return to base. But then, like they're on the ground, Veronica and the cameraman, they're like on their knees, and then GR13 just shoots the cameraman in the head, like just like that, just like the guy in Vietnam. And then that triggers more memories in GR44, right? And then he attacks GR13. And so Van Damme manages to like subdue GR13, and then he escapes in a truck with Veronica. But remember, all this time, GR44 is like this robotic soldier. It's not like a regular person. And so he's just acting off instinct. Like he's not like fully aware of what's going on around him. And then Perry's Perry's like ordering 44 to turn the car around. And so 44 stops because he has to follow orders. He's basically a robot at this point. And so
He's got that headset with the earpiece, and that's how they take orders or instructions.
Yeah. Yeah. So since he's basically AI, or I shouldn't say he's AI, he's a robot, we'll say. An ant or a cyborg, maybe. He just follows orders, but then Veronica like stamps on the gas and they leave. And then we cut to GR13 just whispering traitor.
I think that's like one of the biggest flaws for the Unisol soldiers is take off their headset, they can't take orders or instruction, and it just leaves them vulnerable and weak, I guess, and open.
Yeah.
So the reporter just orders him around, and he just listens.
Yeah. That's right. So yeah, we might get into that in terms of how they presented the super soldiers. Like in terms of possibilities of what they could have presented them as. Like, should they have had full consciousness, but just not the memories of the past? If you know what I mean.
But the serum that they take is supposed to wipe their memories, though. So I feel like they probably need to be like lobotomized in a certain way, like take away that part of the brain that stores memories, I guess. But
yeah,
just as a fail safe of sorts.
But they could have
another movie.
But they could have implanted memories, right? And so they're fully conscious, but then they have implanted memories. And so they can still be controlled, but they can behave in a way they can interact with the world properly instead of being oblivious to different things. That's sort of my position.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's probably like future Universal Soldiers, like the next series or something, where they have that technology to like make a soldier in that um, regard.
Yeah. So, but I think part of the reason of them acting robotic is so they can be controlled more easily. So that's probably why. So Perry wants to go after them, but the head scientists are freaking out. They want someone to take responsibility for the death of the cameraman. But Perry's like, no, the whole operation is off the books. It's like Black Ops. So they can't reveal anything to the public. Back in the car, Veronica's like, why did you help me to GR44? And he just like, I just wanted to make you safe. And then she noticed he was bleeding. And so he grabs like a cigarette lighter in the car.
My God, you've been shot. Oh, Jesus. Jesus, we gotta stop the bleeding. Oh, God. Jesus Christ, it's gotta hurt you, man.
The bleeding has stopped.
So one of the advantages of being a super soldier, you don't feel pain. So kind of like similar to Terminator. In a similar way, like it looks like a regular guy, but it's a super soldier or a cyborg, instead of like a superhuman. It's an interesting depiction. I mean, I didn't really comprehend that both Terminator 2 and this movie came out the same year, but they sort of deal with similar concepts, I guess, just from different perspectives. And so this is a funny bit because the truck runs out of gas. So GF44 gets out and just pushes the truck himself while Veronica's in this, like in the passenger seat, like what's going on? And then the speedo says they're going 30 miles an hour, like with him just pushing it. And it seems like he was just like pushing the car all night long, basically, which is funny. But he does have a tracking device on him, so which is smart for Perry. So Perry can track him. He's only 4 minutes away. But then 44 and Veronica make it to a petrol station. Hang on. Yeah. So they make it to a petrol station. Veronica goes to make a phone call. It seems like Veronica's always on a payphone in this movie. There's a couple of times she's always on a payphone. Because there's no mobile phones, of course, but that's how it was back then. And there's a motel there as well. I like the creepy guy who's like the guy at the desk they have to deal with. And so 44 goes in the motel. It's like, where's the gas? And it's like, there's no gas. Guys, there's no gas. But then
I feel like motels is like a character in itself in so many like of those movies in those eras.
Yeah,
it's like in like Commando, the motel scene as well.
Which movie?
Like in Commando.
Oh yeah,
when he fights the Green Beret in the motel.
Oh yeah.
I feel like
yeah,
the motels themselves are characters. They pop up in these action movies very frequently.
I agree. It's an interesting point. I never thought of that, but that's a very interesting point. I thought when you said that, I thought immediately of From Dusk Till Dawn.
Oh yeah.
Where that family
messed up scene.
hides out and then Clooney and Tarantino come in and like start bothering them, and Tarantino's like a pedo basically. Yeah, and he's like a psycho. He like kills the maid. But we'll probably get into that movie another time. That's interesting point about the motel. It's not always depicted as this dingy place, isn't it? So anything can happen, basically. So 44 is like walking around really strangely because he's overheating. So this is a pretty funny scene. There's lots of funny scenes, so I'm going to say it's a funny scene quite often. So Veronica like comes into the motel and is like, I want to use a phone. And the guy's like, no, you got to rent a room. Like the room has a phone. And as like she's paying, the guy like looks in her wallet. It's like, it's going to be $20 for this and $20 for that. And so it's like $80 total. There's a ripoff basically. So they go in the room and 44 starts stripping his clothes down and puts on the air conditioner, which becomes like this common theme between Veronica and 44's. Van Damme keeps getting naked in front of her without knowing like the implications of that. And so Perry and the truck, they finally make it to where 44 and Veronica are hiding out. And then GR13, he like cuts the power lines so they can't use the phone in the room. But then back at the hotel, 44 is bare-assed. Like, who knows if that was Van Damme's butt in that movie? I mean, we'll never know. Unless, there's something on the internet about whether... Because I'm sure there's stunt butts all over Hollywood back then. Like, Stallone, Van Damme. I mean, Van Damme had quite a few butt shots.
Yeah. I feel like Van Damme would probably want to show off his butt though. Because he was a bit of a ladies' man, and he was into fitness and health, and like even in Street Fighter, that really terrible movie, like he was giving Kylie Minogue pointers about like doing butt exercises and stuff. So so I assume I guess that it was his butt and not a stunt butt.
Yeah, I mean that's my feeling as well. But I think I heard a rumor that Stallone had stunt butts. That's why I mentioned that. So no, Rocky V. But anyway, so on the TV, Veronica sees a story, like they're running a story in the news that that her cameraman was shot and killed in a hotel room by Veronica after an altercation or an argument, and that drugs were found at the scene. So they're sort of making up this false narrative about what happened to the cameraman to cover up the Super Soldier Project, and they're sort of pinning it all on Veronica. She's like running away, and then Veronica walks outside, and then 44 comes out. Like starts walking out to her without any clothes on. And so everyone's seeing 44 naked in the middle of this parking lot, like the motel owner and his mum's like watching on. But then 44 faints because he's overheating. He needs ice. And so Veronica gets some ice for 44 and then chucks it in the bathtub. And so while he's like cooling down in the tub with the ice, his bullet wound starts healing like basically instantly. And then Veronica's heading up, so she barges into the reception of the hotel and demands to use the phone, and like picks it up and tries to use it, but it doesn't work because, as I said, 13 cut the phone lines. And so 13 actually sees Veronica, and he has her in his sights. But it's not given the order to shoot. He has to just maintain surveillance of the place at this stage. But back in the room, 44 is at his proper temperature again, and he's fully dressed. He's got his desert fatigues back on. And so 44 sees this reflection in the mirror, and Richard Nixon on TV. So there's like, he's sort of freaking out, like inside his head about like what's going on. He sort of sees who he really is. But then as he's like reflecting on this, the super soldiers like shoot up the motel room, and then 44 like smashes through the wall to get to the next room. He keeps bashing through walls, but then the last wall is solid concrete. So the super soldiers in 13 think they have 44 trapped. But the super soldiers go in, but they can't find 44 and Veronica because they're hiding out somewhere. It's like, oh, they got away, whatever. What's going on? But it turns out they were hiding in the bed with the couple. And this is a really clever way to hide from 13 of the super soldiers, is to jump in the bed with these two. Like, speaking of naked people, I mean, damn. Like, but then like 44 like has a gun to the guy's head, so they basically like can't do anything. And so 44 like forces the guy to give him keys to his car, which is an old Chevy. It's like beat up, but it's really nice. But when 44 and Veronica like drive their Chevy, like they beat it up even more, and so they get away. And so Perry goes in. He like tries to assess the situation. But then 44 and Veronica are driving through the desert. But then Veronica's like, she can't relax. Like she's like freaking out, like what's going on? Like she can't explain like what just happened. Like bullets are flying past her head. She's like hiding in a bed with this couple. Like she's being hunted by super soldiers, and she wants some answers, especially about the weird stuff 44 is doing, like getting naked and jumping in ice bars and stuff, including his accent. Like she actually asked about his accent, which is interesting.
What accent?
Yeah.
Accent.
Yeah, but 44 can't remember Jack at this stage. But he vows to find out like what's going on. And so they sort of drive up to this old gas station. Yeah, I put up this picture because it's a nice representation of the aesthetic that the director was going for at this stage of the film, in the middle of the desert. So, like I said before, and as you pointed out, the sci-fi elements are sort of sprinkled in. It doesn't become the main aspect of the film. It doesn't take over like the aesthetic or the, I guess the it becomes a part of the world. It doesn't take over the world. It doesn't replace the world that the story takes place in, because they're still driving petrol-based cars. There's still like this beat up old gas station with a grease monkey outside. Yeah, so that sort of illustrates what I was saying before, how it's just everything's integrated really nicely in terms of the sci-fi. It's very subtle. As I said, the gas monkey is like lying out the front on the bench. That's a gas monkey, yeah, grease monkey, gas monkey, whatever. And then 44 basically turns him into like this, what's it called, a valet, like must have valet his car, basically. What do I look like?
Park the car.
Yeah, yeah, as if he like parks the car as a service, whatever. But and then 44 like pulls her into the shop and takes off his clothes again. And she's like, Damn it, not again. And then he like wants her to find the tracking device. So this is another funny scene. It's always like funny scenes between Veronica and male nudity. But it's just done so really subtly and really well. But Perry's back on the road. He's back on the road with his gigantic truck.
You didn't say why he stripped naked that time.
No, we're gonna get into it. We're gonna get into it.
Okay.
We're just doing everything in order. So, I should have mentioned. Yeah, you're right. So I should say he stripped off his clothes because he wants her to find the tracking device. Yeah, you're right. I didn't say that. And then we cut to Perry. He's like back on the road again. He's still tracking them because the tracking device is still in the back of his leg. And so this is like pretty funny, but also disgusting at the same time.
Is that supposed to be there?
Yes, yeah, it is. It's very normal.
Cut it out.
Cut it out. Wait a minute, I can't cut it out. Oh God, this is so gross. Are you okay?
Yeah, I mean that's sort of special effects reminds me of T2 as well.
That jump scare sound effects as well, kind of.
Yeah,
that reminds me of Aliens. Like even later on, like with there's a scene later on with Dolph Lundgren in the truck, where the jump scare sound is just like Aliens. Like, it just stands out.
Yeah. No, I mean, there's a couple of horror elements in this movie for sure. Like when the corpse, not the corpse, when the super soldier who looks like a corpse opens its eyes when Veronica's taking the picture, like that's like a horror movie trope as well. So
yeah,
some interesting elements here from the director. So Perry's right on the ass, as you would expect, because they're being tracked, obviously. But the super soldiers, they move in, start shooting everything up. But it's a trap. There's a trap. That's sort of the gas station like blows up. And the super soldiers are like walking around like they're all on fire.
I think most of the super soldiers get killed in that explosion.
That's right. Because even if they're not killed directly, they'll like overheat like super quickly. And so Perry and like the scientists have to use a portable coolant to cool down like whatever soldiers are left. Yeah. And so so Veronica and 44, they're basically expert hiders. They're world champion hide and seekers. Because Perry and the super soldiers can't find him once again. Because sorry, I just pressed. So the super soldiers and Perry can't find them again because they're hiding in the back of another Chevy or another car. Well, they're hiding in their Chevy, in the boot of their Chevy, or the trunk, with the ice. So 44 can cool down, then also hide out at the same time. While Veronica's in a different car trunk, because they're not going to go in the same trunk, right? Because there's ice in one trunk. But and then another funny moment where the grease monkey is like wearing Van Damme's clothes, right? Like he's wearing the desert fatigues.
Yeah, he's got his fatigues on at best.
He's wearing the desert fatigues. I'm just mistake. Do that again. Okay. Okay. So, and so they make their getaway. Actually, no, they don't make the getaway because they actually sneak onto the super soldier truck and steal documents,
Oh,
which is
it was first GR13 snuck into their car, wasn't it? When they were trying to escape? Or is that before? Oh no, that's afterwards, isn't it?
that's just after, yeah.
Just after.
Just
Oh
after.
yeah. So while the scientists come out putting out the fires, they sneak on.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we learn that each super soldier costs $250 million. So that was 30 years ago. 250. So you can imagine what that would be in today's money with inflation. But then 44 and Veronica think they've gotten away with it. Like they've got documents. They escape Perry, but then GR13 is hiding in the back of the Chevy. And he starts choking 44 as they're driving away. But then the car crashes and then 13 like goes flying through the windscreen. And then 44 just like drives away. 13, he sort of gets back up, gets back into the truck, but he's like slowly getting back there because he doesn't really care anymore about Perry, what he has to say. And so, interestingly, before he gets back into the truck, 13 says his real name. Do you remember what his real name was?
Dolph Lundgren's real name.
GR13.
Yeah, it's Sergeant Andrew Scott.
Yeah, Sergeant Andrew Scott. And then he shoots Perry in the eye. Which is
He has a lot of
which I guess is
headshots.
again, yeah, he's very accurate, as we'll see in the supermarket. So he shoots Perry in the eye. Was sort of here the shooting Perry in the eye reminds me of Terminator 2 as well. By the way, and so 13 goes into the truck and tells the soldiers Perry can't hear them because he cut off Perry's ears.
He puts his ears down.
Yeah. And so 13 is like, yeah, I'm giving you the orders from now on. And he kills like 2 guys and then takes charge.
I feel like Sergeant Scott or GR13. I feel like he has total recall at this point.
Yeah,
like he remembers, he gets all his memories back, and he feels like he's still in Vietnam, and like the war's still going on in his head.
Yeah, he goes back to that psycho character that we're introduced to in the first scene, basically. So we cut to 44 and Veronica. They arrive at the diner for the infamous diner scene, which is coming up very soon. And they start ordering food. But then Veronica's like, guess what? I got to keep making calls. I got to make some more calls. So she goes back to the phone booth once again. Back at the truck, the 2 scientists, like the main scientists, the black guy and the white guy, they're like working on another super soldier, but it's not going to make it. They're like, oh, we have to stall, like so we don't piss off 13. And then like they look over at 13, and it's like basically taking steroids.
Muscle enhancers.
I thought this is, they call it muscle enhancers.
Yeah.
But it's some sort of instantaneous muscle stimulant that makes him super strong immediately. which is something you would find in a video game. And it's also reminiscent of Drago from Rocky IV, because the whole thing with Drago is that he took steroids. Oh my God,
Yeah.
Drago, the Russians are taking steroids. Like that was like a big deal back then. Muscle enhancers, yeah. That was funny. It was a good idea though. Like that's what you would have, right? Some sort of stim for the super soldiers to make them like 50% stronger for a brief period of time. Actually, no. I said Veronica went to make a call. She doesn't make a call yet. They're like sitting at the diner. They're like going through documents that they stole from the truck. And Veronica's like, "Oh, it seems like the super soldiers are genetically enhanced." And then 44 like reads a warning on her cigarette pack and stamps out her last cigarette. It's like, what are you doing? And then 44 is like, why are you helping me? And then she's like, oh, I'm doing it for myself and for her career as a journalist. And then Veronica gets up, is like, listen, I'm gonna make some calls. I gotta go back to the phone booth. I gotta make calls. And then she tells 44 to stay and like enjoy the specials. And you better believe that he does enjoy all the specials. And so 44 is like just sitting there by himself. He's looking around like, what the hell am I supposed to do? And so he sees this old guy like eating, and he starts copying him how to eat. In the back of the truck, 13 is making another ear necklace. So this is another.
Makes you assume that the way that the Unisol soldiers eat food isn't your traditional way. It seems.
Yeah, that wasn't programmed into them.
They must get body supplements or proteins. I guess through IV or something, but it doesn't seem to be orally if he's not sure how to eat food.
Yeah, they're not eating for enjoyment. Let's put it that way. So the main scientist here, he's like, "Oh, we got to talk to you about something." And 13's like, "I'm all ears." He holds up his ear necklace, and I love the scientist's facial expression, because they cut to the scientist's facial expression was like priceless. So that was funny. Like, there's so many funny bits in this movie. So the main scientist, his name is Woodward. He tells 13 that his thermal monitor is registering hot, so 13 has to go for a nap. And so 13 goes in the cold chamber and like basically powers down, or so we think. And so Woodward, he goes in, tells Garth, the black guy, his plan, which involves going into the fridge and then like killing 13 or incapacitating him in some way. And so Garth is like, I'll do it. I'll volunteer to go in.
It'll look better that way if I do it.
Yeah. I don't know why it'll be better, but he just says it.
Maybe he's the usual guy that does it.
Oh yeah, that's probably the point, yeah. And so as Garth is like checking the injection device, 13 like wakes up and like pulls off Garth's helmet. And then he stabs him through the head with a needle. Which is pretty
that was pretty brutal.
Pretty graphic, yeah.
Yeah, it's like the needle comes through his cheek.
It splits his head like in two, basically.
Yeah. Like he's reaching down next to his chair. Like it looks like he's reaching for the gun, and then that's when Sergeant Andrew Scott opens his eyes, and then that's when they play that alien jump scare sound effect.
Yeah.
And it just made me think, oh, that's aliens right there. And like that setting with like the mist coming down, and I just had this aliens sci-fi kind of feel in that scene.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great observation. So there's a lot of, I guess, artistic influence you could see within this film from various other science fiction films from the era, whether it's the 80s or the early 90s. So again, it's sort of consistent with the era within which it was filmed and released, which is why the movie resonates so much with us. It's sort of, in a way, it's sort of related to those movies, whether it's stylistically, artistically, aesthetically, through various ideas of the director. So whether it's consciously or unconsciously, I think a lot of these creators influenced each other at the time. It becomes a style after a while.
No, that's a good observation.
So we get to the infamous diner scene. So if you watch Universal Soldier, everyone says the diner scene is the best scene in the movies. So it's the funniest scene. It's a surprising scene. It's a bit of a cruel scene, as I'll get into in a second. But so after the brutality of Garth's death, we get the funniest scene of the film. Back at the diner, 44, he's depicted as like he's sitting at the table. There's like a pile of plates. There's a pile of Pepsis next to him as well. I don't know what it is with these movies. It's Pepsi, not Coke, as we saw in Goodies. So Brenda, actually, let me just play this. I'm going to describe. Let me play this, and then we can talk about it.
Hey, you got enough money to pay for all this?
Hey, punk, I've been slaving all day making that slop.
The food is good.
Fucking it is. The question is, how are you going to pay for it?
Like, what makes it so funny is like how deadpan Van Damme plays it all. It's good. Or when he like just picks up the mashed potato, just eats it. For some reason, that's so funny.
Nonchalant with his answers. It's like that. He comes out, he's all threatening. What was his name? Bob, Bill, Brenda is like, they just can't believe these responses that's coming out of him. Like they're expecting him to like grovel or like say something. Oh, I got no money. Yeah, it just adds to that scene and that comedy.
Yeah, but I think Van Damme can be a funny actor if he wants to be, because in this case it's very subtle. Like all he needs to do is just play it very subtly, and oblivious, as if he's oblivious, like he doesn't know what's going on.
He does incorporate a lot of. He incorporates a lot of comedy in. I think in all of his movies, he does some comical scenes or some humorous scenes. Like there's every movie. I think Double Impact has some really funny scenes as well.
Yeah. As we saw the head chef, so the head chef comes out and is cooking that slop all day and threatens him. And then 44
slaving
says,
away.
Yeah, and 44 says, "I don't want to hurt you." And then everyone laughs because they think 44 is going to get beaten up. But a huge fight breaks out in the diner, and like about 20 people get beaten up by 44. They get thrown through windows, like tossed onto pool tables. Like it's a really huge brawl. And Van Damme's like, "I just want to eat."
And he's going around as he's fighting, knocking people down. He'll go and eat something from another plate, and then you go pick up the popcorn at the pool tables as well.
Yeah, we get a lot of traditional Van Damme martial arts moves. So like the spinning ballet kick and everything you would expect from a Van Damme martial arts demonstration. And so 44 like throws a guy at the diner in front of Veronica. She's hanging up the phone, like throws him through the window. And she's like, what the hell is going on in the diner? And the 44, like, this is like the best way to end the scene because 40, like she looks through the broken window and 44 is just there eating popcorn and smiling. Oh, he has this sigh. This
Yeah, it is
sigh.
like he's full or something.
Yeah.
Like, I've eaten enough. I've had my fill.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice way to end that scene.
Mm. And so the next part of the film is day 3, as it says on the screen. And the super soldier truck rolls into a small town in Utah. And so, so the super soldier truck rolls up in a small town in Utah. I think it's a bar, right? That they roll up on.
Of bar or club.
Yeah. And then 13 comes up to a bunch of guys out the front.
Like cowboys.
Says, I'm looking for a deserter. And start talking shit about his necklace.
He's like, nice necklace. Like, nice necklace. Yeah. I've got one made out of noses.
Yeah.
I got one just like it, made out of noses.
Yeah, and these guys aren't exactly like 6'4", like they're little guys, or they're fat, or like they're just boozed up. Well, they're just regular guys, and they're just talking so much. And so 13 has to kick their ass, like all of them.
He just stands in one spot and just kicks them all once, and they all drop.
Yeah, and so. We learned so we saw the black scientists get destroyed. Let's see what happens to Woodward. Like he tries to blow up the truck with a grenade, but then GR-74 like keeps holding onto his hand, so he can't escape. And so
he's supposed to. Soldier was supposed to take the grenade out to GR-13 and blow up next to him or something.
I thought, didn't Woodward say, GR-74, I want you to hold this grenade? Isn't that what he said?
That's what he said. But before that, I thought he said that he wants him to go to GR-13. I don't know. Maybe you're right. Because I do remember him saying that, hold this grenade and for 30 seconds or something like that. And then he just grabs it and holds it.
Yeah. Yeah. So regardless, Woodward gets his hand stuck in GR-74's grip, and so he can't escape. And so we get the explosion from outside the truck, from behind 13. Like there's an explosion inside the truck, and so we assume that Woodward is like blown up with GR-74 as well. But outside, 13 has like this short guy by his ankle. It's like holding him up.
He takes his belt as well.
Yeah. It would have been funny if he took his belt and starts beating him on his ass or something. That would be funny. So obviously 13 knows there was an explosion in the truck, so it goes in. It's like basically GR-74 and Debo, they've been blown up, and so 13 has to put them on ice in the nearby supermarket. In the meantime, 44 and Veronica, they're at the VA hospital to see Dr. Gregor, the guy who actually performed like the head surgeon for 44 when they like did the super soldier transition. Let me play this. This is also like one of the funny scenes, unexpectedly funny scenes in the movie.
Do you have any idea what it's like out there? Well, I'm fighting this thing, man. I kick ass. Well, kiss ass. And I'm busting heads. And these shitheads. These yellow traitoring motherfuckers.
Yeah, I kick ass or kiss ass. I don't know why that's so funny, but it's like, especially when we were kids, like that was hilarious.
It's a really hilarious scene. Platoons dropping like flies. He's dragging the bodies into the cold storage.
Yeah. It's like kicking Diva. It's like, get up, soldier. It was funny as also when 74 like takes a bite out of the raw steak. Hilarious. Like it looks like real steak. Like the actor was like actually chewing on the steak.
It did look real. I'm assuming that was real. Yeah.
I'm assuming it's real too.
Like, there's no harm in it.
No, not at all. As long as it's fresh. So the cops show up, but then, as we alluded to earlier, 13 like takes them all out with headshots, basically. Boom, 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 boom. It's like just like that. And so back at the VA hospital with Dr. Gregor, he's describing the process of turning dead flesh into living tissue. But the process comes with the drawback that the super soldiers actually run hot. So in order to accelerate dead cells, they would need to increase the temperature because of the energy expenditure, basically. And so on the television, they see GR13's rampage at the supermarket. And Gregor's like, oh, by the way, when the soldiers die and get brought back, they get brought back with the emotion that they died with, which is interesting. And 44 is like, so 44 gets really philosophical. He's like, oh, I guess that means we're both dead then, like him and 13. And then 44 is like, I just want to go home. And he gives Veronica a bus ticket back to LA because he doesn't want her to get caught up in his mess anymore. It's like he wants to go back home to his parents, and he wants her to like go back to LA and get on with her life and etc. But she pretends to get on the bus, but she doesn't actually get on the bus back to LA. But instead, she gets busted by a bunch of police cars because the bus rolls away. And she's facing the camera as the bus rolls away, and we see a bunch of all these police cars, and then she turns around and notices like she's been caught. So that was an interesting moment as well. And so 44 and Veronica, they've been caught by the cops. They're on the prisoner bus. And of course, 13's truck rolls up on the prison bus. So it's basically 13's gonna bust him out of the prison bus. And so 13, because he's a super soldier, he can lean out of a truck with an M60, basically with one hand, and shoot up the bus in front of him. Like, this is really cool. Once again, the M60 shows up in an action movie from the 80s and 90s. It's like the perfect gun for that era. We saw it in Commando, of course, and so makes another appearance here. So the bus is out of control and the driver's dead. And so 13, like you said at the start, 13 loves his nades. So throwing grenades into the bus. And then Veronica's like throwing them out, which would have been scary for her. And then 44 is like, oh, he like basically throws her out of the bus.
like,
while it's still moving.
13's like, "Do you wanna play catch?" It's
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah. That's right, yeah. And
And
so
"Are
13
we having fun yet?"
oh, yeah. Yeah, how can I forget that?
It's
Yeah,
got
I'll put
those
it on.
memorable
Yeah.
lines.
And so 13 finally blows up a tire and the bus like flips. And then 74 like pushes the bus over the edge, but then 44 like shoots him dead. And the truck and the bus go flying off the cliff. And so the bus and the truck go flying off the cliff, and like Veronica and 44 is like staggering in the desert, like what the hell's going on? And then this small town cop in the cop car like rolls up on him, tries to arrest them. But then Veronica like knocks them out. She knocks him out because she's had enough, basically. And so they steal the cop car and they drive to Louisiana to a farm and GR44's parents. So 44 is reunited with his parents after 25 years. So I'm glad they actually put in a specific time frame between the Vietnam War, like when he died and when they were reunited. So it's 25 years.
Yeah.
And then Veronica makes the joke, "Oh, you look great for 50," which is true. And then she's getting philosophical as well. She's like, "Oh, maybe I'll quit cigarettes," you know. And then Veronica's like, "All right, I'm out of here. There's nothing more we can do." She gets back in the cop car and wants to leave, but then the key's missing. And the key's missing because GR13 caught up with him. And this is at night now, by the way. And so the lights go out in 44's parents' house because 13's taken 44's parents hostage. And so he's calling out from outside for 44 to come out and play. And so 44, he gets tooled up. He's got a long barrel shotgun. And 34's outside acting like they're still in Vietnam, calling Veronica a gook traitor. I can't remember what exactly he says, but
Well, and he's also saying, "I can't believe you got your parents involved, soldier." And he's just
he keeps going on about gook traders throughout the movie. And so it's time to fight. It's finally time for 44 and 13 to square off in a mano-a-mano fist fight to the death. But 13 is very strong. So 13 has the muscle enhances, obviously, and like destroying 44 basically. And so 44 is like running low on medication as well, like whatever drugs he needs to take because he's a super soldier. Yeah, as I said, 13 has the super strength because of the muscle enhancers.
Got that
and
massive syringe with him.
Yeah, and at this stage, 13 like he's beating 44's head against the cop car. And so he like beats up 44 enough, but then he drags him over to Veronica's like he tells 44 to like shoot Veronica.
Gave you an order, soldier. Now let me see your waist, that gook traitor.
I think we should shoot her in the head.
It's empty!
It's empty.
It's empty.
Like he's such a nut in this movie. Dolph Lundgren. It's empty. Like the way he says his lines, it's like,
I imagine he had a lot of fun playing that role as well,
yeah.
acting like a dad.
So as we saw, Veronica like runs because she's finally free. But like as I alluded to at the start of the stream, and as you alluded to, 13 has to get his nade out. He has to take his shot at Veronica, and so he throws a grenade at Veronica as she's escaping. And we just see an explosion, and Veronica go flying. Well, we don't know if she's dead. And so that wakes up 44, who like flies in with a flurry of kicks. The 44 tries to steal the big syringe with the steroids, but it gets knocked out of his hand, and he strangles. But he like scrambles to it and manages to stick himself with the steroids. And he's like, "Good night, asshole." Right? I think that's what he says. And then
it's a 44. I mean, 13 says, "Say good night, asshole." And then he turns around and he pulls the syringe out. Say good night, asshole.
Yeah. Okay, so now they're on an even playing field. And so 44 starts kicking 13's ass. And it's like the end of Rocky 4, basically, where Dolph Lundgren gets destroyed. Although at the end of Rocky 4, it doesn't really get destroyed. Like both of them are destroyed by the end. It's just that Rocky happens to win. But and then 13 gets kicked out of the barn. And outside the rain's falling. It's very dramatic. And then 44 like front kicks 13 onto like these spikes on a wood chipper, which I guess is like pretty horrific if you think about it. Like the spikes look really sharp and really long, like they're gigantic spikes. And he's like impaled in like 20 different places on this wood chipper. So we think he's dead, but he's not, because 44 goes up to him and then 13 like wakes up and grabs 44 and tries to pull him closer to the spikes. But then 44 like snaps his arm and turns on the wood chipper and is actually you can say what he says.
You're discharged, Sarge.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yes. So 13 basically gets turned into mush with the wood chipper, which is a great way to go, I suppose, if you're a super soldier. And so 44, he frees his parents and goes on to check on Veronica. So she didn't get blown up like the Vietnamese girl at the start. She's actually alive. She was knocked out, but she's still alive, relatively unscathed. There's another funny line, because it doesn't stop. Veronica says, "Where is he?" And he says, "Around." Because he is around. It's like being sprayed around in minute chunks.
Blood is getting sucked in your mouth.
His parents have his parents would have to clean that up at some point, I'm sure. And then 44 is like, "Oh, I finally feel like, a 50-year-old man, after getting beaten up." And then that's the end of the film. And then Body Count by Body Count plays over the credits. Yeah, Body Count. Body Count, very early 90s soundtrack song, if you heard of Body Count, Ice-T. But that's Universal Soldier. So as we say in every movie that we talk about, it's highly recommended for various reasons. And so for this one, it's very funny. It's a relatively quick, fast-moving action movie with two of the best action stars of all time. Very entertaining actors throughout the film. I mean, the dialogue's pretty funny. The action set pieces are cool. Everything about it's just really cool. A nice addition to our collection of action movies from the era. What's your final thoughts?
I think he said everything I wanted to say. Yeah, it's
So,
hilarious. You love your 80s, 90s action. This is right up there. This is one of my favorite Van Damme movies of all time. It's definitely up
yeah,
there. I think probably Bloodsport's my favorite Van Damme movie, but
yeah.
this could be my second favorite. Top
Mm.
5, definitely, yeah. Yeah, so definitely worth a check it out. It's not as cringy as some of those other old movies. So it's funny, thoroughly entertaining. It's got some good action, and
Yeah,
you have some
yeah.
good laughs.
I think it holds up really well. But I would agree. Bloodsport is my favorite Van Damme movie by far. I mean, there's other honorable mentions, right? Like, I think Cyborg is right up there because it
Kickboxer
was
was
so
also.
yeah.
I
But in
like
terms of
Double Impact as well.
yeah,
I might do Double Impact.
yeah, Double Impact was hilarious. Yeah, we have to do that. We have to do that in
Yeah.
Cyborg at some point.
Yeah,
The Cyborg was super weird. Cyborg was weird. Like it wasn't.
Yeah, that's kind of it had something about in Cyborg. I just felt unsettled when I was
Yeah.
watching that when I was young. It's very intimidating, like bad guys and even the enemies that he faces, and just that world in general is just like this
Yeah.
dystopian future, and it's just kind of unsettling as a kid. I just didn't feel comfortable, but like watching Van Damme, I felt like, oh, he'll save the day. He'll make it all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just had this. It just had this. It made me feel a certain way. That movie.
Yeah, it
As a
had a
kid.
really good world building. Yeah. It's a world building and the atmosphere was really unique. It was more of an artistic film, more of an art project film more than any other of his films. Which makes it unique. It'll be so interesting to see it as an adult because I don't think I've seen it as an adult. Like some of the messages and the images and the artistic nature of it. It'd be fun to watch. But so the next episode will be Rocky 4. I've been thinking about other movies that we can do. We never talked about Top Gun. Like we're gonna do Top Gun, that's for sure.
Yeah, we're gonna do Top Gun.
That'll be fun. Yeah. But anyway, Rocky 4 is next, and then after that will be 48 Hours. And maybe we'll do Rocky 4 after that, or something, or Top Gun after that, or something along those lines. But anyway, that was Universal Soldier, as we said, one of our favorites. Check it out. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And yeah, nothing more to say. Thanks for watching. And we'll see everyone.
Comment,
subscribe.
subscribe.
Yeah, we'll see everyone next time.
Cheers.
Big ears. Cheers, big ears.